Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to today's Chet Chat. Today, I am going to be discussing the topic of Krav Maga. I had a friend ask my thoughts on Krav Maga, a police officer who also trains Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. We often talk about, like real life type applications for things, and he's very interested in pursuing that. So that topic came up, and I just thought, well, I did a video on karate, so I'll do a video on this. Also, want to announce that Chet Chats is going to be transitioning over to a podcast, so might do one or two more of these videos, but after that, it's just going to be entirely podcast. If you enjoy the content, hopefully you follow along. Anyway, let's get right into it. So, Krav Maga, developed by the Israeli Special Forces, essentially they tried to pull very high percentage moves from multiple disciplines to do what works. I really like that concept, first off. In another video, I talked about the difference between the training techniques versus training methodology. And a martial art can fail if either the training techniques themselves are poor or the methodology is poor. And I think the techniques and the concepts in Krav Maga are fantastic. I like the idea that they don't do kata in Krav Maga. And for those of you that don't know, kata is the kind of prearranged, choreographed thing that a lot of the traditional martial arts do, and base a lot of the promotion and progression on your ability to memorize and execute kata. And they don't do any of that. I also like that Krav Maga does not do any tournaments. So they are not, they're sort of immune from that mission creep, if you will, that happens when a martial art gets so entrenched in tournaments and sport applications that it can lose its combat effectiveness. So you're not going to go to a Krav Maga class and ever hear anybody say, so this is how you get 4 points, or it's better to do this as opposed to this because it gets more points in competition. You'll never, ever have to deal with that. So those are all really good things. I like that it's very simple. Krav Maga usually utilizes your body's natural response to things and tries to sort of direct it into something very productive. So what I will say negative about Krav Maga is that it's sort of a... So what do they do? Okay, let's take a step back. A lot of Krav Maga is, here's how we inflict a lot of damage, a lot of pain very quickly, and then we get out of there. Not a bad concept. I like that concept. I think that's very useful. It deals with a lot of, here's how you hit the groin in this position. Here's how we gouge the eyes in this position. We're always attacking the throat, the nose, the ears. Really focuses on the body's weak points and everything. Once again, I think that's great. I think that's absolutely wonderful, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think where you can kind of miss the mark is with the fact that and I've done Krav Maga, so I've seen the classes up close. They don't do any sparring at the end of class. They don't go live. They don't do rolling, as we would call it in jiu-jitsu. So they don't get really the opportunity to try these moves and these concepts against a fully resisting opponent. When you think about it, it makes sense, right? How are you going to be able to practice your eye gouge? How are you going to be able to know? Because you think, okay, well, an eye gouge is pretty simple, right? And I would agree. You could probably do an eye gouge if you really had to. But wouldn't it be nice to be able to do it at least once or twice to make sure that you're coming in at the right angle, that you're pressing in far enough to the ocular cavity, that you're, causing the eye to pop, or at least prevent further eyesight or whatever. These throat chops, do you know how high up on the throat you need to be chopping? Do you know how hard you have to hit? Do you know which part of your hand needs to strike in order to break the trachea? You can know in theory, but you will have never had a chance to practice and know for sure, this is what I need to do. This is what it feels like. And that sort of having that theoretical knowledge, but never actually being able to practice it and see it out is, I think, a major downside. So the hallmark, and I'm going to take a second to kind of talk about jiu-jitsu and just kind of, so for people who don't know, people who don't train jiu-jitsu, I hope this is helpful. I'm going to give you a little glimpse into something. Let's say you go to class and you learn a move. You learn an escape from bottom side control. So when you're on the bottom on your back and a person's on top of you, kind of with your torsos perpendicular to each other, and they're pinning you down, you learn how to escape from that. And you're shown a technique, okay? You drill the technique a few times, and that's great. So now you sort of know what's supposed to happen. And what people should do, and we all should do it more than we do, but when it comes time to roll or to do sparring at the end of the night, you practice what you learn. So then either that night or maybe a few weeks later down the road, you're in this situation now where a person is pinning you down and you want to practice that move that you just learned. And you go to do the move and it doesn't work the first time. Okay, so you're a little frustrated. Next time you do the move, it works. You're doing it against a white belt, a newer student. It works. Great. You go and then you do that same escape against a blue belt at another time, a higher rank. And for whatever reason, it doesn't work. And hopefully the blue belt maybe explained to you why. Maybe you went and talked to your coach and then they showed you a little adjustment to make. And then next time you go back, you do it, and now it works against a blue belt. Okay? And you notice that there's a few little body mechanic things that have to happen in order for this escape to work consistently. And so you start working on that. Then you start making little adjustments of your own body and your own setup to make the move work for you. And you refine that, and you refine that, and you refine that. And then eventually you get down the road, you get to a point where you can hit this escape on almost anybody. It's like your go-to thing. It's something that you almost have to stay away from it because it's gotten too easy. And it doesn't matter, big, small, a higher rank, a lower rank. If you really want to hit this sweep, you probably can, okay? That's competency, all right? That's trial under fire. That's refining a move. That's truly knowing that move will work for you in an actual fight, okay? That process of refining doesn't happen in almost any other martial art. I mean, I will say Muay Thai does it, Judo does it, Sambo does it, but we're talking about more of the traditional martial arts, and even Krav Maga. So we're talking about Krav Maga. That process of, okay, a guy comes up, grabs your throat, and starts trying to kick you, do X, Y, and Z, hit him in the nuts, and then run away. You don't get to see where that breaks down in a real fight. You don't get to see the problem area and say, oh, you know what? Once I get to step 3, that's where I usually run into problems. So I need to maybe make some adjustments in step 2 to set up a better transition to step 3. You don't get to go through that sort of laboratory to make it work. That's the problem. I'll say, and I am totally stealing this next thought from Ben Aubin, a really good black belt and combatives instructor, but he says it's so much easier to take someone with a grappling base who has that timing and sensitivity and awareness on the mat, awareness in a entangled situation, to take that person and then introduce these combative elements, these combative techniques, that I think he would probably even include, some Krav Maga stuff into that category, to teach someone, okay, once you've learned to control this person, once you have now obtained a dominant position on this person, hit them in the groin, chop them in the throat, gouge their eyes, like that's great, like do that stuff. But don't think that you're going to be able to do that stuff before you've controlled the person, before you've obtained a dominant position and you know how to hold that dominant position. You can't take someone who just knows how to hit people in the nuts and chop them in the throat and then give them grappling instincts and give them timing and sensitivity and body awareness and and knowledge of kinesthetic alignment and stuff like that. You can't just give that in a weekend seminar. You could take a BJJ blue belt, a BJJ purple belt, or a brown belt, or a judo black belt. You know, these people who have some really good grappling bases, and in a weekend seminar, show them the most efficient ways and times when you need to be eye gouging and throat punching and dick grabbing and all this other kind of stuff. You know, like, and it's not to take away from that. It's just that doesn't take years and years and years on the mat and you know, hundreds and arguably thousands of hours on the mat to develop that. So if you have to figure out what your base training methodology is going to be, and then obviously it's fine to augment with other things. Krav Maga, I think Krav Maga is a great augment to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and you know, like you know, knife stuff and all that kind of thing. Great to augment with it, but I do think that people that train exclusively Krav Maga, I think that if they got into an altercation, they would experience all those surprises at the wrong time. They would have their learning curve be when their life is actually dependent on it. Now, full disclaimer, people, for example, my wife has no interest in grappling, no interest in rolling around with people. I mean, just not her thing. But she would do Krav Maga, like more or less, kind of almost like akin to like a cardio kickboxing class where you get a good workout and just learn some basic principles and stuff. If she did that, I'd be totally happy with it, because I'd rather her do that than nothing at all. I mean, it's better to at least have an idea of, okay, well, I should be doing this, or this is going to be my pre-programmed response if somebody does this. It's better to have a plan and do it, even if the plan is not perfect, than to have no plan at all. So if a person is in a situation where they can't train jiu-jitsu, or for whatever reason they won't train jiu-jitsu, that's fine. Like, no judgment at all. It's definitely, I mean, I think Krav Maga is a great sort of, I don't want to say second place, but like, if you can't train jiu-jitsu, if you can't train judo, if you can't do that sort of thing, but you can get into a Krav Maga class, I think that's fine. I mean, it's, you know, but if we're just talking about if you had your druthers, you know, if you had an opportunity to dedicate yourself and train one, I think one is a clear winner over the other.